from 3 to 6 have blowouts, B fewer than 4 blowouts, and C is more than 5 blowouts. So the question is that, sorry, let us first write that X follows binomial number of trials times the probability of success. And our PMF, is equals to 15 CX, dahil hindi natin alam kung ilan yung success, times yung ating is probability of success, number of trials times the probability of success is 1/4 times 3/4 raised to 15 minus x. Because we do not know what is or how many success we can get out of this trial. So the question number 1 is from 3 to 6 blowouts. So we do have probability of x from 3 to 6. So, this is equal to the probability of 3 plus the probability of 4 plus the probability of getting 5 and the probability of getting 6. So our probability formula is given that 15 C3, which is our success plus times 1/4 raised to x, and our x is the number of success, which is 3 times 3/4 times raised to 15 minus 3. And you will be following this formula for 4, 5, and 6. And arriving on the answers, the probability of us getting 3 to 6 blowout is 0.7072. Have you got the correct or have you got the same answer? Have you got the same answer?
Yes po.
Okay, thank you. For the 4 have blowouts and 5 have blowouts, you will be following this formula in order for you guys to solve those problems. And when you encounter issues while solving this problem, you can message me or hit me up anytime in order for me to guide you or tells you what to do. I know. So moving forward, if we do have just like assessment, yun nga, sabi ko naman is you can do it or you cannot do it. But make sure you do understand the assessment exercises, because most of our final examination will be coming from this assessment exercises. So moving on the next topic is the Poisson. And Poisson is part of the discrete probability family. Poisson is just, I will just be doing some brief introduction, but we will not be solving problems dealing with Poisson. On the discrete family, we will be dealing more on the discrete uniform, binomial, and Bernoulli. But just to give you a quick background on what Poisson is, let's discuss it. However, we will be discussing it in brief, and then moving forward, we will be discussing our next topic. So, just a quick background about Poisson. Poisson is, it do have fixed time interval. What do we mean when we do have a fixed time interval? So, Poisson is denoted as X follows Poisson. Double S ba yun? Sorry. Yeah, double S nga. Poisson, X follows Poisson given the lambda. So we do have a parameter called lambda. Yes, Shane? Yes, yes, sorry. Napindot lang
Ma'am,
or ano? Sige.
sorry to interrupt po. Ma'am, mag-ask lang po ako kung nagpe-present po kayo, hindi lang po sa'min hindi ko lang po alam kung
Ay,
sa'kin lang.
wala ko
Wala
nakikita.
pa ba sa presentation? Yes, ma'am.
Wala. Okay na, may nakikita na kayo.
Yun ma'am, meron na po.
Yan. Salamat, salamat, salamat. Thank
Thank you
you.
po.
So, nako, sige. X follows, thank you ha. So, Poisson, X follows Poisson given the lambda. And as you can notice, in Poisson, we do have a parameter called lambda. And what is lambda? Lambda is the fixed time interval or the fixed time interval. So, lambda is the fixed time interval. So, remember, in Poisson, it do have a fixed time interval. And other these intervals, we observe the number of occurrences of a given event. So, in Poisson, it do have, for example, from 0 to 10 minutes, how many black cars we are observing on the road. So, meaning to say, kapag we are talking about Poisson, we do have a fixed time interval. Unlike the other, we do a series of trials, we do repeated number of trials until we get the number of success that we need to attain. But in Poisson, we set up a fixed interval on which we should acquire the number of the actual occurrences that we set. So remember in Poisson, lambda is denotated as the fixed time interval. Fixed time interval meaning to say, for example, from 0 to 30 minutes, how many students are passing by on the lobby or how many students are going to the faculty room to talk to their instructor. So you can get that by using Poisson probability. So X follows Poisson given the lambda. And lambda is the fixed time interval. And you can get mu or the mean as also equal to the lambda, and the variance is equal also to the lambda, meaning to say the standard deviation is the square root of lambda. As you can notice, in Poisson probability distribution, it um it evolves around the lambda. So remember, Poisson follows a fixed time interval, and mean, variance, and standard deviation is just equal to that interval. So any questions? We will not be solving problems with regard to the Poisson because I will not be including Poisson problems on your final examination. So any questions before we moved on the next topic? But sorry to forgot this, but how can we find the probability given that it follows Poisson? Sorry, my bad, I forgot. So probability mass function for Poisson is equal to the um, e raised to negative lambda times lambda raised to x all over x factorial. So remember this. When we want to get the probability mass function, it is equal to e raised to negative lambda times lambda raised to x all over x factorial. So this is the formula in order for us to get the probability given the data or the problem is follows Poisson. So this is Poisson. Sabi ko nga, I will not be including problems with regards to this. So any questions before we moved on the next topic? If wala, let's discuss about continuous probability. So, continuous probability, just like in discrete probability, it do have families. So, in continuous probability, we will be tackling three families also, which includes the normal distribution. I knew you've heard this a lot of times during your grade or senior high school years. So you do have ideas on what normal distribution is, on what a uniform distribution is, and the third one is the exponential distribution. So that these are the topics that we will be discussing on the continuous probability. So with this, let us first discuss a normal distribution. So in continuous probability, it will be easier for us to draw a graph in order for us to understand the problem. So in a normal distribution, the graph shows a bell-like curve. So for example, this is the graph for a normal distribution. So we do have our x-axis and y-axis. On x-axis, it includes the random variable ranges, or it includes our range. So for example, ito yung ating point A, point B, point C, and point D. And our curve, as what we've mentioned, is a bell-like curve. So our x-axis is the random variable x. And on our y-axis, it is also the f of x. So f of x, meaning to say it is the probability mass function. And the probability mass function determines or tells us the height of the curve from any given point on our x-axis. So let me repeat. F of x, or the probability mass function, tells us the height of the curve above the x-axis at any given point on this. So if we do have C, yung ating given point, f of x tells the height from C until the curve, yun yung ating f of x. And remember this, the total area inside the curve, the total area of this curve is equal to 1. Remember that. The total area inside the curve is equal to 1. And if we want us to get, for example, the probability of x is greater than A, what is the probability if x is greater than A? So this is our A. This is our A. And we want to get the probability if x is greater than A. Meaning to say, this will be our shaded region. And in order for us to get the probability of this, we will be finding the area of this shaded region. Just like, for example, if we want to get the probability if it is in between B and C. So if it is in between B and C, the probability will be coming from this area until this area. So we will be getting the area of this shaded region in order for us to get the probability between B and C. But the question is that if we want to get the probability if X is equal to B, what will be the probability? If X is equal to B, give me the probability. So can anyone tell me what is the probability if X is equal to B? What is the probability if X is equal to B, or this red line? What is the probability? Anyone? Pwedeng try lang, naman mapapagalitan pag mali yung sagot. So, Can someone tell me what is the probability if x is equal to b? For those who can answer this, we have plus 5 on the finals. Anyone? Just try. What is the probability if x is equal to b? And sabi natin, we can find the probability using the area of that region or using the area of that range. But what is the area if I want to get, sorry, what is the probability if I want to get the probability of B only? So, can someone tell me what is the probability of B? This red part. Yes, Zayel.
Ma'am, try lang po.
Zayel.
Try lang po.
Yes,
Zero po.
no problem. Zero. Okay. Anyone who wants to try? Any other answers? Yes, Jonathan.
Try lang din po, 0.5 po.
0.5. Any other answers? Who wants to try? Try lang, wala namang problema. Mm-hmm. Francis.
Ma'am, try
Very
po. Ma'am, 2 po. 2.
2. Shane.
Try lang din, ma'am. 1, ma'am, or probability of B is greater than X po.
Probability of B
Great
is greater than
X, ma'am.
X. Sorry.
Baliktad po.
Probably yan. Probability of B is greater than X. So, to answer that question, what is the probability of X? Sorry, what is the probability of B? So, the probability of B is 0. Why 0? Bakit ba 0 yung probability ng B? Because as what we've mentioned, the probability of this can be get by the area. And when we want to get the area, we should have range. And kapag yung B, wala naman siyang range. It's just a line. We form a line on the B. However, hanggang saan ba yung kukuhanan natin ng probability? And that doesn't satisfy that condition. And if we want us to get the probability of B, 0 yung sagot. Because remember, that probability must always be greater than or equal to 0. We do not have negative probability. And si probability ng B is 0 because we do not have range values. We do have only line at B. Thus, the area of B is equal to 0. So, sino nga yung nagsagot ng 0? Sorry. Okay, sige. Valdoria. Okay. So, remember that if we want us to get the probability using area, we should have range of values. And if we form a line only, the probability of that is 0. So, meaning to say that if we want to find the probability if x is greater than a, the probability of x is equal or greater than a is the same. Let me repeat. The probability of x is greater than a, it is the same as the probability of x is greater than or equal to a. And if we want to get, for example, the probability of between b and c, it is equal also to the probability of b greater than or equal to x, but it is less than or equal to c. So remember that um, if we want to get the probability, we consider the starting and the end point. We should have range. So that is in continuous normal distribution. So if we want us to get the probability, just get the area of the shaded region or just get the area of our range. So next family in the continuous probability is the um, uniform distribution. In uniform distribution, the graph shows this. This is our x and this is our f of x. F of x, we do have a starting point and end point also, A and B, and the graph looks like a rectangle. So from this graph, what is the definition of a uniform distribution? So can someone tell me, seeing this graph, you can now define what is a uniform distribution, but can you define for me what is a uniform distribution? Anyone? Kindly define what is a uniform distribution based on the graph given. Based on the graph given, yes, Shay.
Ma'am, ano po, kagaya po nung sa discrete, ma'am, equally likely to happen po. Tama ga po.
Yes. Somehow similar to, thank you, ha. Somehow similar on the uniform discrete probability. In a uniform continuous probability, the f of x value is constant all throughout the ranges from A to B. So that's right. Let me repeat. In uniform continuous probability, just like in discrete uniform probability, f of x values remain constant throughout the range starting from point A to point B. And remember that the area of this rectangle we form is equal to 1. So the area of this is equal to 1. So for example, I have a uniform follows 2 to 6. So, meron akong uniform values na 2 to 6. At i-graph ko siya ng ganito. Example, ito yung 2 ko, ito yung 6 ko. And I want to get the probability. I want to get my f of x. What is my f of x if I have a values from 2 to 6? What is my f of x? Or what is my PMF or probability mass function? Can someone tell me what is my f of x given this value, given the range of starting from 2 and ending in 6? Um what is my f of x? Plus 5 sa finals. Yes, Ansel.
Ang magiging f of x po ay 1 over 6 minus 2 po. Tama po?
Yeah. 1 over 6
minus 2
minus 2. So 1/4. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you po.
1/4 yung ating, thank you. 1/4 yung ating f of x. Just to compute, sabi natin, area of a rectangle is equals to base times height. And as we've mentioned, when we do tackle about uniform, sabi natin that the area of the rectangle is equals to 1. And our base, this is our base, 2 to 6. So meaning to say 6 minus 2 is 4. And our height, the height of our rectangle is the f of x. So we can get f of x, it is equal to 1 over 4 or 1/4. But to put this on a formula, um, PMF, when we deal about a uniform continuous probability, it is equal to 1 over b minus a. And when we want to get the mean or the average, it is equal to a plus b over 2. And if we want to get the standard deviation, it will be b minus a all over negative 12. So standard deviation is equals to b minus a all over square root of 12, sorry. So let me repeat. If you want to use formulas to get the PMF, mean, and standard deviation, when we are dealing with the uniform continuous probability, PMF is equals to 1 over b minus a, mean is the average, and standard deviation is b minus a all over square root of 12. And as you can notice, PMF and mean is just the same on the uniform discrete probability because, sabi natin, on uniform discrete probability, the f of x is constant. The f of x value is constant all throughout the range given to us from the starting point until the end point. So that is the second family that is included on the continuous probability. And the next family is the exponential. In exponential, the graph shows this one. In exponential, this is our f of x point, for example, and this is our x-axis, which is the values of our random variable. And in f of x, uh, in exponential, it is a declining curve, meaning to say, it declines, the value of f of x is constant, but it declines all throughout on the values of our random variable. And in order for us to get f of x, just follow this formula. F of x is equal to lambda e raised to negative lambda times x. Let me repeat. F of x or PMF is equal to lambda e raised to negative lambda times x. But what is lambda? Ano po ba ma'am yung lambda? Lambda is our rate parameter. Rate parameter meaning to say it is the rate of decline on our exponential values. Ano? So lambda is the rate of decline or rate parameter. But how can we get lambda? What is the formula in order for us to get lambda? Lambda, you can get lambda, it is equal to, 1 over the mean or the average. So lambda, this is lambda, not x. Lambda is equal to 1 over mean. And the area of this declining region is equal to 1. So area is equal to 1. But if we want to get the probability on the left side, if we want to get the probability on the left side of the curve, meaning to say on the positive, it is greater than, remember this, if we want to get the probability on the left side, it is equal to e raised to negative lambda x. Let me repeat. If you want to get that the given number is sorry, if you want to get the given number is less than x, sorry, is it is equal to e raised to negative lambda x, e raised to negative lambda x. And if you want to get x is it is equal to 1 minus e raised to negative lambda x. So if we want to get the probability to the right, it is equal to e raised to negative lambda x. And if we want to get the probability to the left, so from x to the left, we will be using 1 minus e raised to negative lambda x. And if we want to get the probability to the right, it is equal to e raised to negative lambda x. So that is the three families that we will be dealing on a continuous probability. So let's summarize on the terms and before we deal with solving problems. So continuous probability includes three families: the normal distribution, second one is the uniform distribution, and the third one is the exponential distribution. On a normal distribution, the curve is a bell-like curve. On the uniform distribution, it is a rectangle, and the value of f of x is constant all throughout the range. And on the exponential, the curve is declining, and we will be using lambda. Lambda meaning to say it is the rate parameter, and we can get lambda. It is equal to 1 over mean. So that are the three families that we will be encountering when we are solving problems dealing with the continuous probability. So let's first solve problems in order for us to practice on how we can apply those knowledge when we are dealing with problems. So okay. First problem is that this one. Can you see it now? Can you see the problem? Is it visible?
Medyo malabo po, ma'am.
Hindi medyo malabo. Sige, basahin ko na lang. So number 1, the amount of time a person must wait for a train to arrive in a certain town is uniformly distributed between 0 and 40 minutes. So first question is determine the probability density function. So probability density function is the same as the probability mass function. When you heard probability density function, it is the same as PMF. So the next question or instruction they want us to do is draw a graph for f of x. And the third one is what is the probability that a person must wait less than 8 minutes? And the fourth one is what is the probability that a person must wait greater than or more than 30 minutes? And the last question, sorry, hindi pa siya last. Letter E, calculate the probability between 10 and 26, the probability if x equals 20, and the probability if x is greater than 45. And calculate the mean and the standard deviation. And the last one is what is the 85th percentile? So let's solve this problem. So the first question is what determine the probability mass function? So letter A, Ang sabi dito, it follows uniform. And what is the range of those value? The range of those value, naghihintay daw sila ng train from 0 to 40 minutes. So can someone tell me what is my PMF or what is my probability mass function? Anyone? What is my probability mass function?
1/40 po.
Sino yun? Sino yung nagsagot? Sorry.
Liwag po.
Liwag. Okay. So my PMF is 1/40. So 1 over B minus A. So it is equals to 1 minus 40 minus 0, 1 over 40 minus 0. So it is 1/40. So my PMF now is 1/40. And let us do the graph. So this is my graph. I have X on which my value runs from 0 to 40. And my f of x based on the calculation above is 1/40. And my f of x is constant all throughout the values on my given range. So this is the graph of this problem. But letter C, let us find what is the probability that a person must wait less than 8 minutes. What is the probability if the person must wait less than 8 minutes? Anyone? What is the probability if the person must wait less than 8 minutes? Yes. Simon?
8/40 or 1/5 or 20%.
Thank you. Yes. So, okay, dito natin siya gawin sa graph. So, ang sabi, we will be waiting the person will be waiting with less than 8 minutes. So, for example, nandito yung 8 natin, and this is our area. This is our range from 0 to 8. And if you want us to get the probability, we will be getting the area of this region. And area, as what we've mentioned, is equals to base times height. And the area is equals to our base is from 0 to 8. So 8 minus 0 is equals to 8 times the height, which is our f of x. And our height is constant all throughout the range. So 8 times 1/40, on which we arrive at the answer 8/40 or 1/5. So this is the probability that the person must wait less than 8 minutes. It is 1/5 or 20%. So for letter D, find the probability that a person must wait more than 30 minutes. Anyone? What is the probability that a person must wait more than 30 minutes?
25% po.
Yes, thank you. So the probability that a person must wait more than 30 minutes is 25%. How could that be possible? Ano? So, ang sabi natin, the person must wait more than 30 minutes. So, for example, this is my 30 on my graph. And 40 minutes yung end ng range natin. So, we will be getting the area of this. So, area is base times height. So, 40 minus 30 is 10. times the height, which is still 1 over 40. So 10 over 40 is 1 fourth. 1 fourth is equals to 25%. So, any questions? Naiintindihan pa ba? 1 fourth. Medyo madali lang, di
Yes,
ba?
yes, ma'am. Ay,
Okay, so what is the probability that, sorry, calculate the probability if the person must wait between 10 minutes to 26 minutes. So the probability of that is, for example, this is my 10 and this is my 26. So this is my region, 10 and 26. So my base is 26 minus 10 is 16 times my height, which is 1 over 40. It is equal to 16 over 40 or 2 over 5. For the next one, what is the probability if x is equal to 20? So what is the probability if x is equal to 20? You guys, what is the probability if x is equal to 20?
50% po.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, what is the probability if x is equal to 20? Okay, mag-call ako. Mr. Ah, sige, Shane. Sorry, Shane. Sorry.
Ano ma'am, 1/2 or 50% po?
1/2. Yeah. Sorry, 1/2. The 1/5. Any answers? What is the probability if x is equal to 20? Okay lang, kahit try lang. You have answers, Jonathan. Diyan ka ba?
Try lang po.
Sige lang.
1 over 20 po.
1 over 20? Any answer? Try lang. Wala namang masama. Mhm. Sino pa? Wala na gusto mag-try? May plus 5 to. Plus 5. Yun. Delgado.
0 po.
0. Any other answers? Try lang din. Okay, if wala lang gusto mag-try, let us find the probability if the person will wait 20 minutes, exactly 20 minutes. What is the probability? And the answer is that the probability if the person waits with exactly 20 minutes is equal to 0. So why 0? As what we've mentioned on the normal distribution, if you can remember that, we can find area if we do have range. And if we just form a line on that certain number or certain range, certain part of the range, we cannot get the area. And sabi natin, ang probability daw, ang hinahanap sa atin is the probability if x is equal to 20. So that the probability if x is equal to 20 is equal to 0. So 0 yung probability if x is equal to 20. Can you understood? Sino nga yung sumagot ng 0? Delgado. Ay, sorry. Bakit ako nag-raise ng hand? Okay. Next question. What is the probability if x is greater than 45? What is the probability if x is greater than 45? Any answers? Yes. Chavs, Mr.
Zero,
Chavez.
zero po, ma'am. Zero po.
0. Okay. Any answers pa? Try lang ng try. So, wala na? The answer, if we want to get the probability if x is greater than 45 is 0. Why 0? Ano? Because sabi natin, yes, f of x is constant all throughout the range on our set. But the range includes 0 to 40 only. And what is asked is the probability if it is greater than 45. And 45 is not part of the range. Meaning to say the probability we can get is 0. And let us calculate the mean and the standard deviation. So mean is equals to the average, a plus b all over 2, which is 20. And the standard deviation is equal to 40 over the square root of 12. It is equal to the 11.547. And next question is, what is the 85th percentile? What is the 85th percentile? Can you tell me what is the 85th percentile? How many minutes?
Thirty-four po.
34. Okay. Okay, so let's calculate. 34 minutes is the answer. Thank you. So, 85th percentile is what is asked on the problem. So, 0 is our 0% or 0 percentile. We do have 10, 20, and 30. 10 is our 25th percentile, 20 is our 50th percentile, and 30 is our 75th percentile, and 40 is our 100th percentile. Given that we've asked to know what is the 85th percentile, meaning to say it is between 30 to 40. So the 85th percentile is between 30 and 40. And this is our K, for example. This is our 85th percentile. Si K, sabi natin that area is equals to base times height. And we've known that the area is the 85th percentile. It is equal to 0.85. And our base is equal to, what is our base? Hindi natin alam kung nasan si K. But it is from 0 until K. So we do have K minus 0 times our height is 1 over 40. Multiplying both sides by 40, we can get 0.85 times 40 is equals to K. Therefore, our 85th percentile is the 85% of 40, which is 34 minutes. Any questions? Nakakasunod ba? Medyo madali lang. So, okay. Um, solve this problem for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll discuss your answers, or someone will present your answer, his or her answer, um, to the class, or in order for the class to know. So, solve this problem for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll return, or we'll discuss your answers after that. So, try solving this as your assessment exercise. Ano? Before we move on the next 2 to 3 examples for this topic. So, solve this and hit me up when you're done, and we'll be discussing your answers. Okay. Who wants to answer letter A? Yes, Miss Valdoria.
Ipapaliwanag po ba?
Sige, sige. Diba dito sa Jamboard, you can access it. Nagiging ano ba kayo dito?
Ay, phone lang po gamit ko.
Ah, sige, sige. Sige lang. What is your answer?
1/25 po.
Sige. For the graph, who can show the graph? Shane. Nag-volunteer ka na pala. Yeah, Shane. Can you access the Jamboard or are you just using phone then?
Ma'am, wait lang po. Send ko lang po.
For letter C, who wants to answer? Sige. Mr. Gabby. For
9/25 po.
sige. For letter D, yes, Eric.
Sasagot na po kayo, ma'am. Ang di ko po ay 10/25 or 40%.
Nakaka-access ba kayo dito sa Jamboard? Yung mga nakaka-access, pwede nyo ano dito yung ano, isulat yung answer nyo if you are using laptops. Ito yung mga nandito eh.
Ma'am, naka-view only po.
Ah, paano ano yun? Edit, my gosh. Wait lang ha. Yan. Okay na pala.
Ma'am, excuse po. Sa GC ko ma'am hindi ko lang po ma-access yung Jamboard.
Sige,
Sige.
sige lang. Yan. Nakaka-access na ba kayo sa Jamboard? Yung ano dito, yung naka-access. Try nyo nga. Kung tama ba yung ginawa ko.
Naka-view only pa rin po.
Ah, naka-view only pa din. Editor na kayo. Done. Must have link to access. Okay, sige. So, for letter A, sige. Sino nga yung nagsagot na? Makalimutan ko. Si Valdoria, si Katigbak, tama ba? Tapos, si Gabi at si Ilya. Okay. So, for letter A, your answer is... Wait a minute, kaping mainit. A is equal to the PMF, which is 1/25. So, tama. 1/40 minus 20, 45, sorry, minus 20 is equals to 1/25. And for the graph, it is equals to the uniform distribution. So x and our f of x is at 1 over 25. And the graph shows that the range are from 20 to 45. So this is the graph for this problem. And for letter C, what is the probability that the student will take more than 36 minutes to complete? So our area, our base is 45 minus 36 times 1 over 25, which is equal to 9 over 25. And for letter D, what is the probability that the student will take between 26 to 30 minutes? So we do have also A equals 35 minus 26 times 1 over 25, which is the same as letter C, 9 over 25. So for letter E, who can answer letter E? Yes, Jonathan.
Sa
What?
M po ay yung 65 over 2 or 32.5 po, percent.
Okay, sunod.
Ang SD po ay yung 45 minus 20 over, ano pa, ang sagot po ay 7.21, 68, 78, 36, 5.
Kompleto.
Tapos po
Sunod.
yung variance po ay 52.08333333 po.
Okay. Okay, so yung tanong kasi is that what is the mean, the standard deviation, and the variance? So mean is the average. So 40 plus 25, 45 plus 20 is 65 divided by 2, which is 32.5. We arrive at this answer. For the standard deviation, we do have the formula b plus a all over the square root of 12. And for the variance is just the squared of the standard deviation. So 7.217 square is equals to 52.083. So letter F, what is the value of the third percentile? So can someone tell me what is the value of the third percentile? Letter F, what is the value of the third percentile? Anyone, just like what we did on the 85th percentile, as what if you can remember on what we did on the 85th percentile? Sige, Mr. Chavez. Dami mo ng plus, Mr. Chavez. Kahit wag ka na mag-take ata ng finals,
38.75 po.
38.75. So, let's solve on how can we arrive on 38.75 answer. So, our third percentile, so we do have percentile 1, percentile 2, percentile 3, and percentile 4. So, percentile 3 stands for 0.75. So, we do have, di ba, yung kanina, 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So, our area is 0.75. It is equals to the base, which is, we do not know, the base is from 20 until the k, which is our third percentile. So our base is equals to k minus 20. And our height is our f of x, which is constant on our range. So our f of x is 1 over 25. Multiplying both sides by 25, we can get 18.75 is equals to k minus 20. and K is equals to 38.75. So this is the answer for letter F. And for letter G, who wants to answer letter G? Uh-huh. Bukod kay Mr. Chavez. Anyone? Anyone who wants to answer letter G? So the question for letter G is that what is the probability that the student will take more than 40 minutes to complete the test given that he always takes more than 30 minutes to complete any chemistry test? So, what is the answer? Yes, Mr. Chavez.
30% po.
What is your answer?
30% po, 0.5.
30%. Okay. So, any other answers bukod sa 30%? Okay, sige. Sabi your answer for letter G is 30%. Any other answers before we solve the problem? Yes, Shane, what is your answer?
Ma'am, try lang po.
Sige lang,
60% lang.
50%.
60
Okay.
ma'am, 60
60,
po.
60. Okay, 60. Wala na gusto mag-try. Last 10 sa finals. Any other answers? Yes, Mr. Javier.
35% po.
35%. Mr. Castillo.
Ma'am, 67 po.
67%. Last one. Wants to try. Lana. $65 tsaka 45. Okay. Let's try solving the problem and let's see kung sino dito sa mga nagsagot yung makakakuha ng plus 10 on the final. So the question is that what is the probability that the student will take more than 40 minutes to complete the test given that he always take more than 30 minutes? So meaning to say we are going to find the probability of A given B. What is the probability of A given B? And the probability we will be finding is the probability if x is greater than 40 given that x is greater than 30. So how can we solve it based on the discussion on the midterm exam? So first, let's demonstrate it through a graph. So this is a graph, and this is our x, and this is our f of x. F of x still remains at 1 over 25th or 1 over 25. Our value is still at 20 and 45. So this is our graph. And the question is that what is the probability that um, that the students will take more than 40 minutes given that they always take more than 30 minutes to complete the test. So, ano ba yung formula natin kapag may given condition? Di ba sabi natin that the formula, if you can still remember our discussion, the probability of A given B is equals to the probability of A and B all over the probability of B. So for us to find this, we will be using the probability of A and B, meaning the intersection of A and B, and the probability of B. So what is the intersection of A and B? So ano ba daw yung intersection ng A and B? Ang sabi natin, ito yung 30. So students take more than 40 minutes. What is the probability that the student will take more than 40 minutes given that they take in more than 30 minutes? So, saan ba sila nag-i-intersect? Saan ba sila nag-i-intersect? So, if the students takes more than 40 minutes, more than 40 minutes, ito yun, dito yung area na yon. But if the students take more than 30 minutes, given that they take more than 30 minutes, so this area is this one. So, more than 30 minutes. So, alin yung intersection nila? Which is the intersection? Can you give me which is the intersection? It's the probability if x is greater than 40. Tama ba? Nakuha ba kung bakit yung intersection is x is greater than 40?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes po.
Okay. And the over the probability of B. Our B is the given condition. The probability if x is greater than 30. So let us now find the probability if x is greater than 40 and the probability if x is greater than 30. So the probability of x is greater than 40. Our base is from 40 to 45. So we do have 5 times our height na 1 over 25 all over our x is greater than 30. So from 30 until 45, we do have the base of 15 times 1 over 25. So now you can solve for the probability if the students will take more than 40 minutes given that they will take given that they take chemistry test at more than 30 minutes. So what is the answer to this?
0.33 po pala.
So 0.33 or 33%. So walang nakatama doon sa mga nag-try magsagot. So this is how you solve. You will just be remembering on the different relationships that we've discussed previously. Like this one, we will be solving the probability, conditional probability. So this is probability of A and B over the probability of B. So this is still applicable up until this time of our discussion. So any questions for this problem sa letter G? Nakuha ba?
Yes po.
Okay. So this one. Okay. So the problem states that the test scores of a physics class with 800 students are distributed normally with a mean of 75 and a standard deviation of 7. What percentage of the class has a test score between 68 and 82? And approximately how many students have a test score between 61 and 89? And what is the probability that a student chosen at random has a test score between 54 and 75? And approximately how many students of a test score greater than or equal to 6? Meaning to say, from this problem, it imposed that the data are normally distributed. So we will be using the normal distribution of data. So let's start putting this into graph. So we do have this graph. At sabi natin, on a normal distribution, the graph is just like a bell-like shape. So this is our graph. Ano ba ang pangit? Ayan. So ito yung graph natin. But before we solve this problem, I just want you to remember these numbers. Ano? Just remember these numbers. It will be helpful when you start solving problems dealing with normal distribution. So this is a graph of a normal distribution. Before we deal with the problem, this is a graph of a normal distribution. So this is our x and this is our f of x. At yung graph na to, we do have the mean. Meron tayong mean dito. Ito yung mean natin. And one step from the mean is the first standard deviation. So this is our mean. This is our mean. And one step from the mean is our first standard deviation. So we have our first standard deviation. And on the on the left side of the mean, we do have our negative first standard deviation. So negative 1 SD. Ito yung ating first standard deviation, first standard deviation on the right. And another step from the first standard is the second step standard deviation. So meron tayo ditong second SD. Dito sa kabila, parallel with that is the negative 2 SD. And third step from this, so we have the 2 SD, we do now have the third SD. And parallel with this, we do have the negative 3 SD. So why do we need this? What is the significance of this in the problem or in the problem that deals with the normal distribution? Remember these numbers that from the mean until the first step, so from the mean until the first step SD, the probability that that will happen is equal to 68.268. Remember that. From the mean until the first standard deviation, the probability that that will happen is 68.268. And the second step standard deviation, the probability that that will happen, the probability that the second step standard deviation will happen is 95.45%. It is the second step standard deviation. And the probability that the third step standard deviation will happen is equal to 99.73. So the third step standard deviation. So from the mean, the first step standard deviation will happen at 68.268. So ito yon, mag-happen siya. And then the probability that the second step standard deviation will happen at 95.45, and the third step standard deviation will happen, the probability of that will happen is 99.73. So what is the significance? Ano? So let's divide first. So this is the mean, and the first step standard deviation will happen at 68.268%. So let's divide this into two para malagay ko siya dito sa positive at negative. So it is equal to 34.134%. 34.134. And on the second step standard deviation, sabi dito 95.45. So 95.45 minus 68. So that is the probability na ilalagay natin dito from the first step to the second step standard deviation. 95 minus 68 divided by 2 is equal to 13.511. So 13.511. So from the first step, papunta sa second step is 13.511% yung probability. And from the second step, papunta sa third step, so 99 minus 95 is almost 4. So from the second step, papunta doon sa ating third step, standard deviation is 2.14%. Oh, hindi ko na iba. Is 2.14%. Let me write 2.14%. So remember this graph. Let me repeat that the probability that the first standard deviation will happen is 68.268. The second standard deviation will happen at 95.45. And the third standard deviation will happen at 99.73%. And from this, you can incorporate this on the graph. So from the mean to first standard deviation is 34.134 on both sides. From the first standard deviation to the second one is 13.511 from both sides. And from the first standard deviation up to the second standard deviation, it is 2.17. And from the second to the third, from the second to the third, it is 2.14 at 2.17. So why do we need this? What is the significance with this, when we are solving problems regarding normal distribution? So let us try, ano ba yung palahalagahan nito kapag nagsosolve na ako? Paano ba mapapadali nito yung pagsosolve ko ng normal distribution? So ang sabi dito sa ating question is that 800 students daw ay may mean na 75. At yung standard deviation daw ay 7. So meron ako ditong mean na 75 at yung standard deviation ko ay 7. Meaning to say, my first standard deviation is 7. So 75 plus 7 is 82. So this is my first standard deviation, my first step. On the other hand, 75 minus 7 is 68. And then, my second step standard deviation, 82 plus 7 is 89. On the next, 68 minus 7 is 61. And on the left, on my third standard deviation, 89 plus 7 is 96. On the left naman, 61 minus 7 is 54. Okay, meron na tayo nito kagaya ng graph sa baba. And the question is that, what percentage of the class has a test score between 68 to 82? What is the percentage of the class that have the score of 68 to 82? Meaning to say, this is the unknown. Ito yung pinapahanap sa atin. Ano daw yung percentage ng class? So, from the given data below, from the given numbers below, so we do have, what is the probability of what percentage of the class has a test score between 68 and 82? So, ano yung probability ano yung percentage na makakuha sila ng 68. So, alam natin that the first step standard deviation is 34.134. At itong 82 is the first step also of the standard deviation. At sabi natin dito sa baba that it is equal also to 34.134. So, I can now answer the problem that the percentage of the class that has a score between 68 and 82 is 68.268% using this graph. Pero paano ko po mapapatunayan na tama talaga yan? What is the correct formula or what is the formula that we will be using? You can use the formula, the definite integral given b to a e raised to negative x minus mean square over 2 times the standard deviation square all over the standard deviation times the square root of 2 pi. Let me repeat. What is the formula? This is the formula. Ano? It is the definite integral, dx. Definite integral of b to a times e raised to negative x minus mean square all over 2 times the standard deviation square all over standard deviation times the square root of 2 pi dx. So can you now substitute the values on this formula and let's check if it is equal to this. Can you check the answer if you input this on this formula? Pareha ba? May nagsasolve ba or may nag-input ba sa CalQ? You can directly input it on your calculator. Ano, may nakakuha ba? But if you do this, if you input this on your calculator, we will be arriving at the same answer, 68.268. So naintindihan ba on what is the significance of this graph in order for us to solve a normal distribution continuous probability? Intindihan ba? Okay, so if walang questions, let's move on to the letter B. Letter B stated that approximately how many students have a test score between 61, sorry, tama ba? Between 61 and 89. So, what is the answer? How many students can have a test score between 61 and 89? So, what is the probability? Sorry, how many students that have a test score between 61 and 89? How many students? Ano yung sagot? Based on the graphs provided, based on the diagram provided, okay, so let's discuss ano, so let's try to solve this. So ang sabi kasi, approximately how many students have a test score between 61 and 89? But before we know how many students, let us first get the percentage. Ilan bang percent ng students yung nakakuha ng 61 to 89? So ang sabi natin, if you can see on this graph, 61 and 89 is our second step standard deviation. And sabi natin that the probability that the second step standard deviation will happen is equal to this, is equal to 95.45. So the probability that the students will score this is 95.45. 45. So, ang tanong na lang, ilang estudyante ba yung 95.45%? So, among the total of 800 students, how many students are the 95.45%? Thus, the answer is 764 students. So, 764 students can get a score between 61 and 89. Naintindihan ba? Diba? Medyo, pwede nyo naman din siyang makuha using also the definite integral from 75 to 84 times e raised to negative x minus 75 raised to 2 divided by 2 times 7 square all over 7 times the square root of 2 pi dx. And if you use this formula, you can also arrive at 95.45. You can also arrive at 95.45, and thus getting the 95.45% of 800 is 764 students. So for letter D, letter C pala, what is the probability that a student chosen at random has a test score between 54 now and 75? So what is the probability that the student has a test score between 54 and 75? So going back to this, you can now determine what is the probability of 54 and 75. What is the probability? Okay, so to solve that problem, the probability that the students will score between 54 and 75. So, as you can see on this, it is 54 to 75. So, from the mean going to the third step standard deviation. However, so 54 to 61, what is the probability that we will be getting 54 to 61? The probability that we will be getting 54 to 61 is 2.14. Ito siya, di ba? 2.14. So we do have now 2.14 plus the probability that the students will get 61 to 68 is 13 point, sorry, 591 ito ha. 591 pala siya, hindi 511. 591. So the probability that the students will get from 64, 61 to 68 is 13.591. And the next one is that the probability that the students will get 68 to 75 is 34.134. So now you can get the probability that the students will score between 54 and 75. So what is the answer to this? What is the answer?
49.865 po.
49.865. Thank you. So this is the probability that the students will score between 54 and 75. Let me repeat, bakit 49.695? Ang sabi sa atin ay from 54 to 75. So as per looking on our graph, from 54 to 61, the probability is 2.14. From 61 to 68, the probability is 13.591. And from 68 to 75, the probability is 34.134. So meaning to say, we will be adding this number in order for us to get the probability that the students will score 54 and 75. The last question is that approximately how many students have a test greater than or equal to 96? How many students are have a test score greater than or equal to 96? Ano? Yung 96, yun na yung ating third step standard deviation. How can we get that? What is the probability that the students or how many students can score greater than or equal to 96? So we now get the probability if x is greater than or equal to 96. How can we do that? We cannot use this graph anymore. We do not have any percentages on the 96 until infinity. So we will be using the definite integral on what is the formula that we've presented. So it is equal to from infinity until 96 it times e raised to negative x minus 75, our mean, whole over 2 times 7 square all over 7 times 2 pi dx. Although, we cannot evaluate this because we do have infinity. And we can assume values for infinity. Ano? I'm assuming that this will be 1,000. So, if you encounter this, in order for us to be uniform, let us assume infinity as 1,000. So, from 1,000 to 96, assuming that my nearest value to infinity is 1,000, we will be having definite integral of 1,000 to 96 times e raised to x minus 75 all over 2 times 7 square all over 7 times the square root of 2 pi dx. And what is the answer to this? So if you try solving this, you can get 0.13%. So 0.1349%. And 13% of 800 is what? What is 13% of 800?
104 po.
100 times 130. Yes, 104. So 104 students score can have a score greater than or equal to 96. So any questions for this example? Or medyo nakakalito na? Any questions? So I will be sending one problem for the assessment exercise. It's up to you if you will be solving that or not. Ano? And next meeting, we will be having our last class for Eda. So kung ano man yung ma-discuss natin next meeting, that will be the coverage of your final, starting from the discussion last week until the discussion by next week. So that will be the coverage of your final examination. So is there any questions before we end our discussion? Any questions or may naintindihan ba? May natutunan ba on the discussion?
Meron po, ma'am.
Meron naman po, ma'am.
Sige lang. So, kung walang questions, that would be all. Thank you for attending. Have a nice